Dyson Spheres. Those are one of those things that when people start talking about them, I don't know. It's like human-shaped robots or AI or warp drive technology. It's one of those things that's like, oh, it's a cool sci-fi thing. It's a fun fantasy thing to talk about in media, or like to even think about like, oh, a super advanced hyper technological society, what would their tech be like? How interesting and fun. But when people start talking about them like in real life, like as if these things are like actually physically realizable.
Maybe we build a big Dyson Sphere on the solar system and say, hey, it actually makes no sense to put these on Earth. I can say with conviction, I don't know, it sounds cool to try to build them in space.
It's just like a hilariously stupid thing to say. Like what? And I would love to invite you in on the joke. So that way in the future, when you hear like some random tech billionaire who's like inside a bubble that's definitely about to burst, and he's just got to throw all the spaghetti at the wall, make anything happen, because when the hammer comes down, boy, is it going to come down on that guy specifically. I mean, it will be fun. Come on. It will be fun.
Maybe we build a big Dyson Sphere on the solar system.
So people who are like aren't super into sci-fi might be watching this video and thinking like, what is a Dyson Sphere? What are you talking about? I don't even know what it is. How can I laugh at it?
Dyson Sphere. It's a very old theory, number one. I'm not surprised that you haven't heard of it.
And boy, do I have an episode of Star Trek for you. And I'm actually really sad because obviously I would have donned my TNG uniform. We have like 3 boxes left to unpack. Haven't found them. It's fine. So we're in Star Trek TNG Season 6, Episode 4, called Relics. The USS Jenolan was reported missing 75 years ago in the sector that the USS Enterprise is in, and what? They just received a distress signal from a 75-year-old missing ship?
Sensors? I'm having difficulty scanning the object. It appears to be approximately 200 million kilometers in diameter.
That's nearly as large as the Earth's orbit around the Sun.
That's what a Dyson Sphere is. Imagine...
In the 20th century, a physicist called Freeman Dyson postulated the theory that an enormous hollow sphere could be constructed around a star. This would have the advantage of harnessing all the radiant energy of that star, and any population living on the interior surface would have virtually inexhaustible sources of power.
So imagine you have a star. Way outside the star, you know, where planets are orbiting around the sun. In addition to those planets, you have a shell. Imagine a bunch of solar panels that are collecting the energy that is output from that star and giving it to some like hyper advanced society. You could still have your planet inside orbiting just the way it does, and like you guys would experience the seasons the same way and everything. You just wouldn't see a night sky. But also in addition, you could harness all of the energy that's escaping from that star and use it to do like your hyper advanced technology stuff. For some reason, people always imagine future civilizations just like a linear use of power. Like, God, if we're gonna be in the future, we're just gonna need all of the power of a star, which is a silly idea in itself, but that's fine. We're in Star Trek. It's fine. We're doing a Star Trek episode. Anyway, yeah, that's a Dyson Sphere. In the episode, they've never communicated with the civilization. A Dyson Sphere is just a hypothetical thing, and they think that they've found one. Okay. But let's just finish the episode because like it's a really good episode. The Enterprise finds the Jenolan, and I really like the practical effects in this episode. Like there was just so much care taken, like models were built. So an away team boards the ship, and life support's still working. This ship must have had an amazing engineer. And then they see the transporter blinking.
Someone survived inside a transporter buffer for 75 years?
Can they materialize this person? Guys, it's Scotty. It's Scotty. So this is season 6 of TNG. In the early seasons, they obviously wanted to distance themselves from the original series. Like, they wanted the audience to know, like, hey, this is a completely different show. Because, God, wouldn't it be boring if someone made a new series, but every single episode was just like, remember? Nostalgia. Remember the Kobayashi Maru? Like, no, that would be garbage, and no one would watch that. But instead, TNG kind of distanced itself from TOS. Like, they have their own characters, they have their own stories, they're way in the future, like, it's totally fine. But by the time the show is established, I think season 5, they had Spock on. Season 6, they have Scotty. Like, it's fun to remember those old characters and see what they would be like in the current version of the show. But first, of course, you have to build a show because you can't have a nostalgia-based show because no one would ever want to watch that. Anyway, it's fun. Star Trek is fun. Star Trek TNG is supposed to be fun, and it is fun, and this is a really fun episode. The episode isn't really about the Dyson Sphere And very much like a Dyson Sphere, in this episode, the transporter is kind of like this future tech that you don't want to think about too much. Like, could someone be trapped in a transporter for 75 years? Does that mean death doesn't exist? Like, that's weird. No, just brush right past it. It doesn't matter. It's like a tech MacGuffin. It's fine. We don't think about it. The point of the episode is that it's like a fish out of water episode about aging. That's it. That's the episode. It's called Relics. There are a lot of fun gags about being in the future.
Lieutenant, change the resonator array.
Oh, that's an EPS power tap there.
The doctors are a fair sight prettier.
He's annoyed and distressed about the replacement of alcohol with synthanol because Scotty only has two characteristics, and one of them is drunk guy.
Captain Scott is unaware of the existence of synthahol.
Synthahol?
Wait till you see the holodeck.
The holodeck is for porn. That's why that joke is funny. So in the episode, Scotty keeps trying to bond with the crew. He keeps trying to share his knowledge. Like, I've worked in engineering for 50 years, and everybody kind of dismisses him, including this guy.
What's right at his fingertips. Of course, the first visit I got into a wee bit of trouble.
Excuse me, sir, but I have to return to duty.
Ah. Well then. Thank you.
I know, if you read the novelization. No, in this episode, this guy, this random, no character guy who was only, like, he just shows up, is just such a jerk for no reason. I hate this guy. Eventually, Picard, who's like super interested in history, and he's like very respectful of like how things came to be. He's like super excited Scotty is there, and he is convincing, requesting.
You must feel perfectly free to decline. You see, one of the most important things in a person's life is to feel useful.
So Geordi and Scotty go on an away mission back to the Jenolan, and they're trying to get some data that the Jenolan originally took about the Dyson Sphere. And then, accidentally, the Enterprise triggers some sort of automatic parking system, and they get sucked inside the Dyson Sphere. Because in a Dyson Sphere, sometimes you have a planet inside, but sometimes you have, like, cities and stuff on the structure. There are many different types of Dyson Spheres. Anyway, they get pulled inside by something automatically. They find the inside empty. This society realized their star is unstable and just have abandoned their Dyson Sphere, but now the Enterprise is being pulled in by that star's unstable gravity or something. So Scotty uses his engineering knowledge of 75-year-old ships to jam the door open with the Jenolan, and the Enterprise is able to jump out, and like, hooray, maybe that Jenolan's not such a relic after all. Also, maybe Scotty's not such a relic after all. The Dyson Sphere definitely still is a relic. God, I love Star Trek. Anyway, even in Star Trek, a story about a super advanced version of humans, Dyson Spheres are like this crazy, hypothetical, mythical, magical future tech. Like, not even in a time where humans with aliens travel the galaxy at warp speed could they even imagine the technology required to build a Dyson Sphere in Star Trek.
Dyson Sphere. Can you imagine the engineering skills needed to even design such a structure?
Yeah, I know, it's pretty amazing.
So it's very funny to hear Sam Altman be like, I don't know, maybe we could build a Dyson Sphere around the solar system. Is probably a couple decades away.
Maybe we build a big Dyson Sphere on the solar system and say, hey, it actually makes no sense to put these on Earth. I can say with conviction, I don't know, it sounds cool to try to build them in space.
It's just so stupid. I just want to be clear. If you are super into Dyson Spheres, I don't think you personally are an idiot. However, if you are a person who's like uniquely responsible for the always wrong, tell you whatever you want to hear machine that has stolen all of our information and all of our data and all of our art, only to feed back worse versions of it and only offer, I don't know, to heat the planet, destroy humans, and tell your teenage son to kill himself. Maybe you personally shouldn't be like, well, maybe the solution to this problem I created is Dyson Spheres. I don't know.
Maybe we build a big Dyson Sphere on the solar system.
Sometimes I can hear people like tip-tap typing away in the comments like, actually, a Dyson Sphere is a real physics idea. Actually, Freeman Dyson is a real physicist. It's a published paper. It was published. And like, I'm sorry I did a little voice, but that's what you sound like in my head. And also, I do know Freeman Dyson. I've talked about him on this, not personally. I know of him. I've talked about him on this channel before. And like, I have read the Dyson Sphere paper. Have you? Have you read it? I thought to continue this video, because this is a physics channel, it would be really, really fun if you and I together, we go through the Dyson Sphere paper in just like excruciating detail. Like every equation, let's rederive it from first principles. Every plot, there's going to be data points on those plots. Using the equations we have derived, we can recreate that plot by getting those data points and plotting them. All the numerical experiments in this paper. So this paper was published in 1960. And I do enough Fortran at work. I absolutely will not be finding his Fortran code and doing it again. But we can just recreate the code in Python. And that will count. That will count as redoing this paper. Okay? Wouldn't that be a fun video? It would kind of be a coffee in the problem, but like for a physics paper. Are you in? Are you in? Let's look at the paper. Did you know you can just have anything blown up and print it on like some plastic board? They'll just do that for you. So what you see behind me is the whole paper. It's a one-page paper, the Dyson Sphere paper. One-page paper, actually. No equations, no plots, no numerical experiments, no physics in this paper, actually. This is a thought experiment paper. There's no physics in this paper. Dyson Spheres, as in this paper, not really a physics thing, is it? I actually have read this paper before, so when I suggested we go through the whole thing in like excruciating detail, I did know in fact that it would be incredibly easy to go through the whole thing in just excruciating detail because it's a single one-page paper. It's just a one-page paper. However, I do think it would be fun to do that, like to take a paper and go through it and like get all the equations and redo the plots. That's an incredibly hard thing to do with physics. I mean, all things, probably, all fields. It's part of the reproducibility problem, right? Like, people don't write every single step in a physics paper. The goal is to, but it's also impossible to do that. So it's really hard to recreate papers. But luckily for us, one-page paper, no math. There's some numbers. I think there's like 3 numbers. But there's no math in this paper, so it's actually going to be really easy to go through. We should still do it, though. Okay. I kind of hoped you could see the words. I mean, I've printed it off, so I'm going to read it. But, like, maybe if I zoom in, maybe if I Google how to zoom in Final Cut Pro, we could see. Maybe you can read the words. Okay. Title of this paper, Search for Artificial Stellar Sources of Infrared Radiation. And I will now read the abstract to you. If extraterrestrial intelligent beings exist and have reached a high level of technical development, one byproduct of their energy metabolism is likely to be the large-scale conversion of starlight into far infrared radiation. It is proposed that a search for sources of infrared radiation should accompany the recently initiated search for interstellar radio communications. All right, that's the abstract. Somehow this paper, it's got the whole page to do this, so I surely expect that it can, is going to explain to us why we expect, why it is likely that highly intelligent, technologically advanced aliens will produce infrared radiation. Far infrared. Okay, sure. It's going to show us how to do that. That sounds like a feasible thing to do in 3 columns and 10 paragraphs. Okay. Column 1, paragraph 1. Kakani and Morrison. Kachani? I'm sorry. Kakani and Morrison have called attention to the importance and feasibility of listening for radio signals transmitted by extraterrestrial intelligent beings. They propose that listening aerials be directed toward nearby stars which might be accompanied by planets carrying such beings. Their proposal is now being implemented. So first paragraph, we have 2 sources. The first is the Nature paper by Kakani and Morrison. They actually have equations and math in their paper. I'll link it below. You can look it up. Kakani and Morrison are very careful with their words in their Nature paper. They aren't suggesting that aliens exist. They're not suggesting they have any evidence for aliens to exist. They're just saying, hey, we made radio signals. If other species exist, they probably would too. They make the argument of like, we can search for them. Here is where we could search for them and what devices we have that could search at specific wavelengths. Here's the argument for specific wavelengths. And by the way, we can, why not? And that's their whole paper. And of course, this is implemented in the 60s and 70s, the SETI project. Alien people, not people who are aliens, but people who are very invested in aliens existing, hate the SETI project for some reason. That would be a different video, but there's disdain for the SETI project in Dyson's paper as well, as you can see. I just don't understand. I don't understand the how dare you look for radio signals. Just how dare you. It's very strange. But anyway, I will leave the sources here on the screens and in the box. So you can go read them if you want. He also cites in this paragraph the Science News Bulletin that just says like, hey, these people convinced someone to give them money and telescope time to search the 2 nearest stars for these radio signals. So that's happening. It's a month-long search. I really liked looking at this Science News Bulletin page, though. It's kind of just like a little snapshot of what people were doing at the time. There's a balloon satellite attempt, a locust swarm control, a warning about overseas diploma mills, and there's this one about a UNIVAC programs convention. UNIVAC is Universal Automatic Computer, and this paper, this published in 1960, so like personal style computer is relatively new, and it's in the news here because the machine programmed a 421-page abstract index in 2 minutes. Previously, it would have taken 1,200 man-hours. Wild. We're in the future. It's crazy. The purpose of this report is to point out other possibilities which ought to be considered in planning any serious search for evidence of extraterrestrial intelligent beings. You see, radio searches just aren't serious. Dyson has a serious idea for us. If we want to be serious, we should follow this idea, not search for radio signals. That's so dumb. We start from the notion that the timescale for industrial and technical development of these beings is likely to be very short in comparison with the timescale of stellar evolution, right? So stars can live billions of years, tens of billions of years, and like advancement in alien civilization should be like millions of years. That's what he's saying. It is therefore overwhelmingly probable that any such beings observed by us will have been in existence for millions of years and will have already reached a technological level surpassing ours by many orders of magnitude. It is then reasonable, working a hypothesis, that their habitat will have been expanded to the limits set by Malthusian principles. Okay, so he's on a thought train. Respect. I love a thought train. Here it is. Any species that we could search for signals from will be much older than us. Because of this, it will be much more technologically advanced society. And finally, therefore, their habitat will have expanded to the limits set by Malthusian principles. Okay, so before we paused the reading to check the sources, but this time we will pause to say, what Malthusian principles? What? And even if you don't know, you do know, Thomas Malthus was an economist from like the late 1700s, early 1800s. So the economic theory of Thomas Malthus, I will refer you to this 800-page document. His idea is that population growth, exponential. Production growth, linear. And when you plot those two types of plots, oh my God, so scary. This will lead to a catastrophe. You'll end up with too many people and not enough resources. Oh no. And you've probably heard people parroting Malthusian principles.
If they'd rather die, then they'd better do it and decrease the surplus population.
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
Yeah. So, I mean, it kind of just gives eugenics vibes, right? I am, of course, not the only person to say this about Thomas Malthus's economic theory. It's just when people start talking about human beings in terms of their like production and their cost to be alive as like resource expenses, it's very inhumane. It's very callous, and it quickly turns into like, I'm so scared because there won't be white people anymore. And it's just like, and that's Malthusian principles, which like there's no evidence that this is true. Like his whole 800-page arguments are just like, look at these two curves, devastating. But this is his whole argument. Like Thomas Malthus took one geometry class and now he knows how to plot exponential versus linear curves. And he's like, I'm going to call this one population. I'm going to call this one production. Scary. And it's just, I just don't think it's true. Is there evidence for this? Is there evidence for population growth being exponential? Because we live in like capitalism in most of the world, and in like the rich country, it seems like population caps because capitalism prevents people from having children because they can't afford to be alive. So I don't think population growth is exponential. That's why immigration is good, actually, because like you need people to take care of the elderly and the children. But anyway, I don't want to shove eugenics ideas into Freeman Dyson's mouth because he just said Malthusian principles. We don't know what his opinion was on all that. All Freeman Dyson is saying, which again I don't agree with, I don't think it makes any sense, but like I can follow his thought train, is that technologically advanced societies will have had to overcome their habitat because they would have had exponential population growth, right? Populations will grow exponentially forever. So because of that, if any society is to survive, they will have had to do something to make more resources, to make more energy. In this paper, he's arguing that any species that isn't wiped out by their catastrophic population growth will have found a way to technologically support that explosive population to match. Sure. Okay. That's his thought train. Don't agree with it, but I see where he's going. So let's also keep going. Column 1, paragraph 3. We have no direct knowledge of the material conditions which these beings would encounter in their search for Lebensraum. I feel so bad for German people. Like, Germany has a really rich culture, like really cool folk traditions. I've been to Germany. I had a great time, but every time I see a German word that I've never heard before, there's like 100% chance that that's a Nazi thing. Do you know what I mean? No one is ever going to see my videos because I keep having to say Nazi. They keep getting restricted. But let's look up this word. Maybe it's not a Nazi thing. Lebensraum. The territory that a state or nation believes is needed for its natural development, especially associated with Nazi Germany. I tried to give Dyson the benefit of the doubt, but he's quoting Malthus, you know, known eugenicist, and then also using Nazi terminology in his paper about aliens. Why? Why is he doing that? We therefore consider what would be the likely course of events if these beings had originated in a solar system identical with ours. Taking our own solar system as the model, we shall reach at least a possible picture of what may be expected to happen elsewhere. I do not argue that this is what will happen in our system. I only say that this is what may have happened in other systems. Very similar to the Nature paper by Kakani and Morrison that got radio telescope funding, Dyson is saying, of course, I don't know what would happen. This is what's likely to happen. I do worry how much he's using words like likely, like very similar to the Kakani and Morrison paper. He's saying, hey, I don't know what's going to happen, but here's what's likely. And I don't understand how Dyson knows what's likely because we have a single data point. One data point for what intelligent species do with their resources. How can he decide what hyper-technological species do and what is more likely than anything else? But we go on. We must continue. The material factors which ultimately limit the expansion of a technically advanced species are the supply of matter and the supply of energy. At present, the material resources being exploited by the human species are roughly limited to the biosphere of the Earth, a mass of the order of 5 × 10 to the 19 grams. Our present energy supply may be generously estimated at 10 to the 20 ergs per second. The quantities of matter and energy which might conceivably become accessible to us within the solar system are 2 × 10 to the 30 grams, the mass of Jupiter, and 4 × 10 to the 33 ergs per second, the total energy output of the sun. So these are the only numbers in this paper. There is no math in this paper, and he is saying that the energy available is the biosphere. Like the mass of the Earth is 10 to the 24 kilograms. And he says the biosphere is 10 to the 19 grams. And I really wish he had just cited this piece of information because I went on a huge trail trying to figure out where he got this number for the mass of the Earth because it's 10 to the 24 kilograms. However, in the back of my head, I was thinking about G, the constant G, and I knew in the 60s there was an uncertainty in like the 6 digits, and this is a constant used to calculate the mass of the Earth, and that was resolved in the 80s. So I was like, maybe, and then I was like, there's no way they were off on the mass of the Earth by orders and orders of magnitude. Like, where did he get this number? And then it's the word biosphere. So biosphere usually means like crust of the Earth and up. So he's using a tiny fraction of the Earth because obviously we cannot and we are not able to mine down deep into the Earth and use those things. So that's where he gets the number. But I just wish he had a little citation and be like, this is how they measure the crust of the Earth. Here's where we got this number. Because I just tell me where you get numbers, man. Anyway, none of these numbers have citations. Like, they're all fine. The numbers are good. It's fine. It's just like, if you're gonna cite a random news bulletin, you're not gonna cite where you get ergs per second of the sun. I don't know. Which paper are you using? I don't know. It's fine. It is totally fine to ballpark all these numbers for an argument paper like this. Like, this is a back of the envelope calculation. Like, we don't need super strict numbers, but like, just tell me where you got these numbers. Just how did you get your little ballpark numbers? Just tell me how you got them. That's all I'm saying. I'm still with him on his argument. He's saying conceivably in our solar system, we have the mass of Jupiter available to us. And I mean, sure, I guess, yeah, that's true. The reader may well ask, in what sense can anyone speak of the mass of Jupiter or the total radiation from the sun as being accessible to exploitation? And it's like, no, I was fine with it. Like, I know that this is like a big hypothetical paper. Like, you said we can access the mass of Jupiter. Like, it's some super technologically advanced society. Sure, why not? I don't care. But I'm happy for you to explain to me how we could access the mass of Jupiter. I would love a detailed explanation on what you mean. That would be great. The following argument is intended to show that an exploitation of this magnitude is not absurd. First of all, the time required for an expansion of population and industry by a factor of 10 to the 12 is quite short, say 3,000 years, if an average growth rate of 1% per year is maintained. See how he gave you like a back of the envelope, here's how I got this number? That's good. That's what I want. Thank you. Second, the energy required to disassemble and rearrange a planet of the size of Jupiter is about 10 to the 44 ergs, equal to the energy radiated by the sun in 800 years. Third, the mass of Jupiter, if distributed in a spherical shell revolving around the sun at twice the Earth's distance from it, would have a thickness such that the mass is 200 grams per square centimeter of surface area, 2 to 3 meters depending on the density. A shell of this thickness could be made comfortably habitable and could contain all the machinery required for exploiting the solar radiation falling onto it from the inside. So, did that convince you that it wasn't absurd? Are you convinced? It just takes 3,000 years to get the technologically advanced part, 800 years to disassemble Jupiter because you need the radiation from the sun, and then you're golden. You're living inside the sphere. It is remarkable that the timescale of industrial expansion, the mass of Jupiter, the energy output of the sun, and the thickness of the habitable biosphere all have consistent orders of magnitude. It's not remarkable, Freeman. It's not remarkable. And it's just like, isn't it so convenient that we probably could have the technology to take apart a planet the size of Jupiter in about 3,000 years? And also, by the way, isn't it convenient that it would take 800 years to get the power from the sun to do that? Isn't that convenient? Like, no, what are you talking about? It doesn't make any sense. I still feel like your argument's absurd, actually. You didn't convince me. I don't feel that it's remarkable. But we're only halfway through the paper, so surely in the next 4 paragraphs he will convince us that this is like a feasible thing. Surely this is a good physics, it's a published physics paper. Surely he's going to explain it to us. Let's keep going. It seems then a reasonable expectation that barring accidents, Malthusian pressures will ultimately drive an intelligent species to adopt some such efficient exploitation of its available resources. It's just reasonable. Like, obviously 1 + 1 = 2. If you have an exponential growth curve, you will in fact disassemble your Jupiter. It just makes sense. Remarkable. One should expect that within a few thousand years of its entering the stage of industrial development, any intelligent species should be found occupying an artificial biosphere which completely surrounds its parent star. I'd love to read this to you again. One should expect that within a few thousand years of its entering the stage of industrial development, any intelligent species should be found occupying an artificial biosphere which completely surrounds its parent star. One should expect that. One should expect that to happen. I just find it very funny that that's his whole argument. Like, imagine a species has the technology to collect 800 years of power from a star, disassemble a planet the mass of Jupiter, take the ingredients of Jupiter, somehow reassemble them into usable materials to build like a megastructure to AU from their parent star, and then of course just live on it forever. Obviously that's what they'll do. They wouldn't, I don't know, use 800 years of solar power to like travel the solar system, Mars colony, or travel the galaxy in generational ships. Nope, of course. It's only a reasonable expectation that they will, of course, destroy a gas giant and build a shell from that material. Of course. Anyway, that's his entire argument. That's it. That's his whole argument. Because the next paragraph, if the foregoing argument is accepted, then the search for extraterrestrial intelligent beings should not be confined to the neighborhood of visible stars. So, if we look at our paper here, here's the abstract, right? This is the argument to right here. That is his whole argument that, of course, every single intelligent species that doesn't die of population explosion, catastrophe, Malthusian principles, will build a shell far from their parent star by breaking apart a gas giant and living on the shell and stealing all the solar power from the star. It's remarkable that, of course, it is likely that every single intelligent species will do this. That's the whole argument. There's no math in this paper. That's the whole thing. That's it. But of course, if the foregoing argument is accepted, then the search for extraterrestrial intelligent beings should not be confined to the neighborhood of visible stars. The most likely habitat for such beings would be a dark object having a size comparable with the Earth's orbit and a surface temperature of 200 to 300 Kelvin. Such a dark object would be radiating as copiously as the star which is hidden inside it, but the radiation would be far infrared, around 10 microns wavelength. I mean, we could keep reading, but he just makes an argument that if that existed, we could observe that. I mean, we've already done all this. We should keep reading. Okay. It happens that the Earth's atmosphere is transparent to radiation with wavelength in the range from 8 to 12 microns. It is therefore feasible to search for infrared stars in this range of wavelengths using existing telescopes on the Earth's surface. Radiation in this range from Mars and Venus has not only been detected, but has been spectroscopically analyzed in some detail. And that is our third reference. That is it. This paper has 3 references. I propose then that a search for point sources of infrared radiation be attempted either independently or in conjunction with a search for artificial radio emissions. A scan of the entire sky for objects down to the 5th or 6th magnitude would be desirable, but is probably beyond the capability of existing techniques of detection. If an undirected scan is impossible, it would be worthwhile as a preliminary measure to look for anomalously intense radiation in the 10 micron range associated with visible stars. Such radiation might be seen in the neighborhood of a visible star under either of 2 conditions. A race of intelligent beings might be unable to exploit fully the energy radiated by their star because of an insufficiency of accessible matter, or they might live in an artificial biosphere surrounding one star of a multiple system, in which one or more component stars are unsuitable for exploitation and would still be visible to us. It is impossible to guess that the probability that either of these circumstances would arise for a particular race of extraterrestrial intelligent beings, but it is reasonable to begin the search for infrared radiation of artificial origin by looking in the direction of nearby visible stars, and especially in the direction of stars which are known to be binaries with invisible companions. Freeman J. Dyson, Institute for Advanced Study, Princeton, New Jersey. So I just want to remind you that what we just read is in fact a published physics paper. So next time you try to argue for some wild, crazy-ass sci-fi idea and then go, it's actually a published physics paper, sometimes this is what it is. Sometimes you're talking about this, a 1-page paper with no physics in it, no math in it. This is what you're talking about. This is published. This is a published paper where the guy says, first of all, obviously, technologically advanced species of aliens will disassemble the gas giants in their system and build a sphere that shields their entire star and collects all the power. Obviously, that's the most likely solution to aliens, of course. That's this whole paper.
Maybe we build a big Dyson Sphere on the solar system.
Sometimes I like to do these videos where I tell a little story and then there's like a big reveal. And I worry that people will kind of stop watching in the middle and they won't get to the end. Like someone who stopped right now would leave this video thinking this paper is stupid and Freeman Dyson is an idiot and Angela Collier personally hates Freeman Dysons and thinks this is stupid. And I don't think Freeman Dyson is a dumbass. I mean, I feel like I've talked about him on videos before and I have been very complimentary. I think Freeman Dyson is great. Sometimes. This paper, I also think is great. This paper is obviously a joke. This is a joke at SETI's expense. A lot of physicists, I don't know why, hate SETI. A lot of physicists think it's a waste of time, especially when it was getting a lot of buzz, a lot of funding in the 60s and 70s. The idea that you would take your precious telescope time and waste it looking for alien radio signals that we have no evidence should exist or would exist or will exist just pissed a lot of physicists off. And Freeman Dyson in this paper, I think obviously if I tell you it's a joke, obviously he is saying like, look at this ridiculous suggestion. Look at the stupid stuff I am saying. Look at this horrible argument where I'm just saying, oh, it's likely, it's probably this, it's likely. And then he offers like, here's what you could search for. Look in the far infrared, look at a dark star. Maybe you would find it. He, in this paper, is doing the same thing the SETI paper does, except making it sound so ridiculous that it would be a waste of time. It would be stupid for physicists to look for this. And in his opinion, based on this paper, this is what Freeman Dyson thinks the argument for SETI is. When Freeman Dyson reads those papers that are like, if there are aliens, they would probably produce radio signals, probably in this wavelength. Let's look. I propose a search at these stars. Freeman Dyson reads this. Freeman Dyson is like, that is so stupid. I can come up with something equally stupid in infrared instead of radio, and why aren't you looking there? If you've got all this telescope time to look for aliens, why not look for this stupid thing? That's what this paper is, and I think it's really brilliant. I think it's a brilliant joke. It's very funny. I don't agree with him. First of all, I think SETI is great. I like SETI. I don't know why people, like, I'm always in the camp of like, well, why not? We should fund science. Like, we should always give more money to science. Like, it's a job creation, but also often when you're looking for a specific thing, you find different things. You develop new techniques, you develop new technologies. Like, you cannot predict where science will go. So if some weirdos are like, let's search for aliens, why not? I mean, obviously, SETI has not found aliens, but do I think that it was a waste of time? No. And even now, for some reason, physicists read this paper, don't realize it's a joke, and they do, in fact, search for these. This seems so stupid to me. I think this is hilarious. I think Freeman Dyson is hilarious. This is so funny. But some physicists are actually doing surveys for these, and I applaud that. Go for it. Are you going to find a Dyson Sphere? No, because it's stupid. It's a stupid thing. But, like, you could find something, so why not? I mean, we've got the telescopes. Why not let people look for whatever? I think it's fine. But in the 60s, this paper was written in 1960, but this ramps up, especially with Carl Sagan. So Carl Sagan becomes famous in the 70s, the late 60s, early 70s, and SETI was like his baby. Like, that was his preferred area of research. And because he was famous, he was able to pull a lot of funding in that direction. And this pissed off a lot of physicists who thought it was a waste of time. I don't agree with that, but that attitude is kind of where this comes from. This is a joke. It's hilarious. It's funny.
You invented this concept of what's now called the Dyson Sphere, or which crops up in the science fiction literature sometimes.
Yes, I mean, both of those items really have nothing to do with work. Those were both of them essentially just little jokes, and it's amusing that, of course, you get to be famous only for the things you don't think are serious.
I just want to go back to, like, the manifest destiny Nazi part. Like, was this part of the joke? I can't tell. I have talked to a couple people about this in physics, and they were like, well, it was 1960. Maybe Nazis were just still top of mind. Like, maybe Lebensschwarm was just, because of Nazi propaganda, a word that everybody knew, right? But I also wonder, was it part of the joke? Like, was Freeman Dyson saying in his paper, like, first of all, obviously the only successfully advanced technological species is going to be, like, the Malthusian Nazi aliens. Because, like, that's a double joke, right? Because in 1960, of course, we knew the Nazis were the bad guys, and that the Nazi regime is a failed state and will always fail. And they could never become technologically advanced, super technological hyper-Nazis, right? Was that part of the joke? Or was he just making an argument? I don't know. I would love to think that that's part of the joke because it makes it funnier for me. I think it's funnier. But anyway, I kind of thought that this would be a coffee and the problem video, but like there's no physics here, right? And there's no physics to do. Dyson spheres are just, they're stupid. It's a stupid idea. It doesn't make sense physically. It's dumb. Like even if the idea of a Dyson sphere worked, it doesn't. It's stupid. Even if it did work, like please explain to me how you built the nanobots that fly to Jupiter, take the material from Jupiter and do fusion and turn it into some usable metals, and then also are a factory that builds the material and then assembles it into a megastructure. How did we build those nanobots or whatever? What do you mean a Dyson sphere could work? Like, to say a Dyson sphere could work is to be like, first imagine we can do magic. And then we use that magic to build a Dyson sphere. Infinite energy. We solved a problem. But like, pretend we can't. Pretend we could build a Dyson sphere, I guess. First of all, in the paper he describes it as a shell. It wouldn't work. Like, it would just be sucked into the star. It would be unstable. And so people who tried to take this idea and turn it into a real idea are like, no, it's a Dyson swarm. It's just a bunch of satellites. It's not a solid structure. And like, fine. We have a bunch of solar arrays at 2 AU that collect all of the power from the sun. How do we store it? How do we get it back to Earth? Like, are we living on the solar panels? Even if we used it to do whatever, energy is conserved, right? So you build this structure, trapping all the sun's energy. You're just cooking us like a little furnace. Like, you've just created a hothouse. Like, are you going to put a little stovetop on top to let the heat escape, or are we all just being cooked alive? Like, it doesn't make sense as an idea. Hilarious joke, incredibly stupid in execution. It makes no sense. It's just like, think common sense. Like, imagine as a species, we have developed the technology to travel the solar system at a reasonable rate. We have the technology to disassemble a gas giant and convert that mass into some sort of usable megastructure. And now we have converted all of that into energy that we just were sitting on and we have it. Wouldn't we just leave the solar system? Like, wouldn't that be easier? Like, it just seems like the most complicated, stupid way to get energy, which again, I'm not confident we need. I'm not confident that exponential population growth means we need exponential energy growth. That's a line that someone who's selling energy to you would say. I don't believe that we would need it. Why? Why would we need the entire sun's worth of power output? It makes no sense. And just because I have a PhD in dynamics, and that's rarely useful in any situation, I would like to say that taking Jupiter, a massive planet, like if we take our solar system and made a pie of mass, like the sun is 99.999, and the only other slice, which you still can't even see, is Jupiter at like 0.001% mass or whatever. If we took that mass, which is at 5 AU, disassembled it into a sphere and moved it to 2 AU, we would really fuck up the solar system, and we would start throwing planets out of our solar system. It would be so stupid. It doesn't make sense. The planets would start smashing into the sphere. So dumb. It's so dumb. And again, that's just assuming we could do it. We can't fly to Jupiter. We cannot start siphoning off the mass. We can't have a little tiny fusion reactor on Europa where we take Jupiter gas and turn it into materials and get the energy. Have you seen the rocket equation? How are you taking all of that mass from Jupiter and moving it in? Where do you get the energy to do that? And then people are like, no, you just build one at a time and you save up the energy for 160 years and you build it. It's so stupid. Anyway, it's so stupid. It's a fun sci-fi idea. Of course, I love to see it in Star Trek. I'd love to read about it in some fantasy sci-fi opera book series that's 900 pages for each of the 7 volumes, of course. But now you understand how stupid it is in reality, in real life. Physically impossible, but also incredibly stupid to even think about doing. What a waste of energy for your brain to sit there and be like, a Dyson sphere. Perhaps we could build it in a couple decades. Anyway, now you're in on the joke, right? And now you too can point and laugh whenever stuff like this happens.
Maybe we build a big Dyson Sphere on the solar system and say, hey, it actually makes no sense to put these on Earth. I can say with conviction, I don't know, it sounds cool to try to build them in space. Maybe we build a big Dyson Sphere on the solar system.
I would like to end this video by taking you back in time to 2012, because this paper came out in 1960, and there are always like tech bro oligarchs or futurists or whatever it was before that who are like, no, actually probably Dyson Spheres are a good idea. Actually probably, and it's like, just read the paper, man. Before you share your opinion on what's actually probably a good idea, read the paper. Dyson Spheres are stupid. I would like to take you back in time. One of my favorite internet things from March of 2012. Like, okay, so we're on a website called Sentient Developments, Science, Futurism, Life. Imagine making this website 12 years ago, but also keeping it up. Like, it's still up. Imagine keeping this up. Like, you're paying for the domain name every single year. Like, it's at least, what, a $200 credit card every July or whatever, and you're just paying for this? Anyway, this is an article on this website called Sentient Developments by George Dvorsky. Canadian futurist, science writer, and ethicist George Dvorsky has written and spoken extensively about the impacts of cutting-edge science and technology, particularly as they pertain to the improvement of human performance and experience. He is a contributing editor at IO9, the chairman of the board of the Institute for Ethics and Emerging Technologies, and is the program director for the Rights of Non-Human Persons program. Okay. And this article is called How to Build a Dyson Sphere in 5 Relatively Easy Steps. And I'm so sorry, but I think I'm just going to read this to you. My voice is dying because I've already read a whole paper, I read you a real published physics paper, but now I'm going to read you a real published blog post. Let's build a Dyson Sphere, and why wouldn't we want to? By enveloping the sun with a massive array of solar panels, humanity would graduate to a Type 2 Kardashev. That's another thing where it's like, okay, as soon as someone says Kardashev civilization, you can just stop listening. That's the same as Dyson Sphere. All right. Capable of utilizing nearly 100% of the sun's energy output. We are closer to being able to build a Dyson Sphere than we think. In fact, we could conceivably get going on the project in about 25 to 50 years, with completion of the first phase requiring only a few decades. Yes, really. So really good news, guys. If you're worried about energy consumption, this was written in 2012, which means we're 13 years in. 12 years from now, we will have completed phase 1. Let's scroll down to see what phase 1 is. Broken down into 5 basic steps, the construction cycle looks like this. Phase 1, get energy. I just want to read you the 5 steps. 1, get energy. 2, mine mercury. 3, get materials into orbit. 4, make solar collectors. 5, extract energy. Oh my god, it's just so dumb. I just think these conversations are very funny. Like, this person is just like, listen, I'm a futurist. That's my career. I am very smart. I am technologically minded, okay? And I want to have a real conversation with you about how scientifically we can build a Dyson Sphere. This is my real job. I'm a futurist, okay? First of all, imagine we have magic, and using that magic, we mine mercury, we disassemble it, and then we have infinite energy. And it's just, we can't even mine Earth.
Flashback.
Because obviously we cannot, and we are not able to mine down deep into the Earth and use those things.
End of flashback.
What do you mean? How are we going to mine mercury, a planet so far away? Like, we can't be on the planet. Have we developed mining robots? Again, we cannot even mine the planet we live on. What do you mean step 1, mine mercury, is like 2 decades away? We can't even do Earth. What do you mean we can do Mercury? All of our rockets blow up. How are we even getting to Mercury? What do you mean? Something I haven't mentioned yet is that these people are 100% eager. These tech bros, these futurists, 100% eager to go put solar panels in orbit around the entire solar system, according to Sam Altman. But why would we do that when you guys won't even let us put solar panels on Earth? Why are you suddenly pro solar panel when it's on Mercury or whatever? Like it reminds me of Elon Musk, who's like, simply take a nuclear device and then we could terraform Mars. That's so simple. And it's just like, you fucking idiot. You're so stupid. Like, if it's so simple to terraform a planet, wouldn't we just reverse climate change on Earth? Why would we go all the way to Mars? Like, it's so stupid. Like, they just say those words aloud and like, you have to sit there. Like, how can they have a conversation with anyone and not be laughed out of the room? Like, it's so stupid. Step 1, mine Mercury. We did it. Infinite energy. Anyway, I remember reading this and making fun of this in a undergrad class I had. I was just a little baby guy. I was just a little baby physicist. And I was like, Dyson Spheres, so stupid. Futurism, very silly thing to claim as your career. And I know that this article is from 2012. Before the nanotech that we have now, that exists right now, that's currently mining Mercury so we can have infinite energy. So like, things were different back then in 2012 because now we're in the future, of course. But this article is like definitely plagiarism. First of all, he watched a YouTube video from some like Oxford physicist postdoc, and that postdoc was like, here's why we should seed the galaxy, which is honestly more of that Malthusian energy, which like, I don't. Ew. And then he read some other Oxford philosopher, futurist guy's website, right? And he took those documents and he just combined them into an article. And like, yeah, he cites those two documents, but he also just writes down all the ideas from them as if they're his own, which is just like by definition plagiarism. He cited them, but the author of the blog post, George Dvorsky, definitely wanted you to leave that blog post thinking it was his idea. Like, step 1, simply mine Mercury, which like, in hindsight, maybe that was a good idea because now someone reads that and no one thinks it was his idea. It was obviously stolen from those two other guys. So George Dvorsky has like an argument now. Like, I'm not dumb, I just plagiarized. That's not my opinion. I plagiarized this dumb idea about Dyson Spheres from these two guys. By the way, the first guy who said we should seed the galaxy is just like an AI grifter now. And the second guy talks about neuroethics and works in the Department of Very Long-Term Technologies at some future institute at Oxford. So like, maybe these two guys are not who we should be taking advice from when we talk about how to get infinite energies or like any physics ideas at all. Like, if this is where you're going for physics ideas, then maybe not. Just, maybe not. Or, you could steal their work and publish it in a blog and then everyone will think you're the idiot and not these two guys. Like, that's fine. I mean, that's probably fine.
Maybe we build a big Dyson Sphere on the solar system.
So this is the end of the video, but I did want to shout out many thanks to my Patreon who sign up for extra videos every month, but also allow me to purchase big stupid posters where I made a whole poster of the paper. I think that this was fun. I also, if you would like to support the channel, I have some new merch coming out, including this really cool Star Trek shirt, or I know all of you are 90s country music fans. It's my face. As a 90s country music artist. Anyway, sincere thank you and shout out to Patreon and also people who support this channel by buying the stuff. Thank you. Okay.
Maybe we build a big Dyson Sphere on the solar system. Maybe we build a big Dyson Sphere on the solar system. Maybe we build a big Dyson Sphere on the solar system.